Hello everyone, and thank you for tuning in again. I am Kaylee Batesman, the Content Director at SheCanCode, and today we are discussing how to know if a company is the right fit for you. A company's culture is an incredibly important aspect of our working lives. We spend more time with our colleagues and peers than our family and friends, so finding the perfect company should be top of our priority list when it comes to job hunting. And today I have the wonderful Louise Newbury-Smith, Country Manager for UK and Ireland at RingCentral, to help us identify not just the red flags, but the green flags that we should be looking for when searching for our next role. Welcome, Louise.
Hi, Kaylee. Great to be here.
Good. We're very excited to have you here, and what an exciting topic to discuss today as well. But before we get started, can we just hear a little bit about yourself and your background, please?
Of course, yes. So I am as you said, UK Country Manager for RingCentral. I'm in just approached my fourth year at RingCentral. I joined as the Regional Vice President running the enterprise sales function. And the team are selling software. We provide unified communication and contact center software as a service. So that's message, video and phone in one app that can be used on any device. And during my tenure at RingCentral, I've also progressed now to Area Vice President, and that brought with it the UK Country Manager role as well. So a very exciting time at RingCentral so far.
Wow, and if you've been there for a few years already, then you yourself must have found a culture that fits and is right for you, which is obviously what we're going to be discussing today. So we'll move on to the first question because the discussion goes incredibly fast when we do podcasts. So if we can get started with, is company culture an important factor when looking for a new role?
I think it absolutely is. One of, if not the most important factor. It's got to be equal to the job itself and the remuneration package. So hugely important to consider the role of the culture of the company and of the team itself that you're joining when you're considering a particular role.
Yeah, I think as well, when you interview, you can quickly spot what a culture is going to be like just by, even the HR person that you're speaking to in the first round of interviews. And funny enough, whether or not they sound like they enjoy their job, they sound like they've been dragged on that call to get you through the screening process. Are there any, good signs to look out for in a job interview?
I think, first of all, having done quite a few interviews myself, I think it's really important to look at whether the interviewer takes the time and makes the effort to put you at your ease. And that is wholly the interviewer's responsibility. And the reason they should want to do that is because you want to be able to, and they should want to see your authentic self. And you can't do that, and you can't wholly be yourself in what is a pressured situation. Let's face it, if the interviewer doesn't put you at ease right from the get-go. So that would be the first good sign to look for.
Yeah, I think people forget, don't they, that obviously you're being interviewed, but it's important that you take a moment to step back on that call or in-person interview as well and think, what do I find that person warm? Can I be myself at this company? You're absolutely right. It's not just, am I being interrogated by this company? It's are they going to offer me an environment where I can really be myself?
Yeah, completely. And it's also really important, I think, for the person that's being interviewed to remember that they should also be looking to see if that role in that company is a match for them. So the first interview is hopefully a fairly informal one to see and to check for both parties whether it's a match for both of you in terms of what you're looking for.
Yeah.
So if I'm interviewing somebody, I'll spend as much time trying to understand what it is that they're looking for, what they want to get out of the role, because that's hugely important.
Yeah, I think that gets, you do that more as well when you've been in the business a little while. I think when you're a graduate and you're just applying everywhere, your only thought is, I don't care, I don't care what the salary is, I don't care what the company's like, because I don't actually know what a good company looks like at the moment. And, I just need a job. And the more that you go from company to company, you start to realize actually the interview process is not just for them to find the right candidate, it's for you to find the right fit. And I think that takes a little bit of experience though, doesn't it? A graduate that's not going to have that at first, they just need a salary.
Yeah, and that's absolutely fair enough. And of course that comes with experience. And interestingly, I did some interviews a few months ago for our intern program. And that's the first time we've done the intern program in the UK at RingCentral. So I'm really proud of the fact that we've got 3 interns that are doing fantastically well at RingCentral. And one of them said to me, joined the interview fully suited and booted, and which was really sweet to see.
Yeah.
And then admitted to being absolutely terrified.
Oh.
And which you can totally understand. So we spent the first few minutes, first of all, me saying to them, actually, that if you're terrified, that's my responsibility to make you feel comfortable. So that took the pressure off that person straight away. And then, just talking about why that particular role was of interest to them, what they were looking for, rather than, an interrogation.
It's quite interesting to hear that you said one of them was suited and booted, which is lovely to hear, and actually something that you don't hear much of anymore, especially when we have Zoom interviews, and we don't really do in-person interviews, and it's actually just having that practice as well, that practice of interviewing and chatting with potential employers, and not always taking it to heart if you don't get something, but just seeing it as just a really good way to chat through your skills with another potential employer. And you were also discussing some good signs to look out for at an interview. I think that's a good sign that somebody comes suited and booted. I mean, that's really, very keen that intern was. I hope he got the position. So.
Yes, one of the positions. So yeah, we had 3 interns that we took on through that process, and I really hope it's something that will continue. And we were really clear that it's an investment from them and it's an investment from us. Our aim for that is that they'd come back and rejoin us after graduation. So and then we'd carry on supporting them through their career. So yeah, I'm absolutely delighted, and they are absolutely, all 3 of them are smashing it out of the park. So and that in itself is so rewarding and really lovely to see. But yes, it was a bit of a surprise to see one of them totally suited and booted, but very lovely that they'd put that level of effort in. And I think the other thing that is really great to see is when people come to the interview with some prepared questions that they'd really thought about. And then it gives you as the interviewer an insight into what's important to them as well, and helps between you fathom out whether you've got a match on the role.
Yeah, and not just the obvious or things that you would never ever ask, such as salary, or you might get young people ask a question about hours or anything like that. Things that where, like you said, they've really done their research into the company. And they sound like they're somebody that really wants to invest, not just in that company, but in your culture as well. Have you had any funny questions or anything that sort of springs to mind that sort of sticks with you in an interview? I always tend to ask, what is it that you like about your job? Because that tends to put the interviewer on the spot, and actually they think, if they're umming and ahhing, then actually they might not be at a company that has many benefits. But 9 times out of 10, they come forward and say, we're incredibly flexible. That really works for my lifestyle. Whatever it is that they like about their company. But it's always interesting to hear what other questions that you hear.
Yeah, I do get that one quite a lot, actually, which is, I agree with you. It's a great one for an interviewee to ask. And I'll most frequently answer it with, what encouraged me to join RingCentral were all of the accolades that I saw but the reason I stay is because of the people. And the incredibly supportive culture that RingCentral has, genuinely supporting in particular women to progress their career in our sector where we are underrepresented. And RingCentral's actually fantastic for that, for building a completely diverse culture. And it's something that we talk about. It's one of the key KPIs that we have for our business that we talk about on our quarterly business review. But when you take it sort of back a step from the numbers and what it looks like, it's how you feel on a day-to-day basis when you're interacting with the teams around you. Do you feel valued? Do you feel like you can contribute? Do you feel like your voice is heard? All of those things really count for the culture, and also just whether you have fun, because we spend so much time here. If you don't have fun, it's really hard work. So I think that's incredibly important.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say the way it makes you feel, because you're absolutely right. You can go for an interview and a company will reel off all the things that they do in terms of diversity and inclusion and all of these different groups, but it's a lot more than just Slack channel. It really is just the way that you feel daily, and whether or not you look forward to coming to work, what you get out of it in the day, and whether you finish your day feeling like you achieved a lot, or completely frazzled at the end of the day and it's only Monday. So what benefits and perks should potential employees be looking out for? Should that be remote working, flexi time? What kind of things? I mean, we mentioned there is more than a Slack channel. What should they be looking for?
So I think it's a really personal thing. They've got to work out what is really important to them. And I think that some questions that they can ask that will surface the type of culture of that particular organisation. You can perhaps ask the interviewer, how did you handle working environments during the pandemic? And have you then continued flexible working offerings after that? So that gives you an idea as to the culture of the business, and because clearly lots of people had to provide flexible working, for obvious reasons through the pandemic, and that actually accelerated the industry. Our industry as a unified communications provider by about 5 years, really. Lots of businesses that you wouldn't have thought were doing it had to do it and prove the model. But then have they continued it? Have they changed their policies in order to be able to support that? So is it truly embedded in their culture? So how did they handle flexible working through the pandemic? Have you continued that offering since then? And have your teams got access to everything they need in order to work from anywhere? Because saying it and doing it in practicality are two totally different things.
Yes.
And a business has got to provide that in order for somebody to work effectively from wherever they want to. So I think that's really important as well.
Yeah, not to have those technical headaches. Also, not having the not just the technical headaches that come with it, but knowing that you have a team on hand that you can turn to as well. There's a neighbour in my street who I was only speaking to recently, who told me his wife actually retired early because when after the pandemic, as you mentioned, a lot of companies changed over to flexi working and hybrid working. But his wife was really struggling with the fact that she didn't understand how to do things. And as she was in the office, she could, physically go over and ask somebody. And she says she just didn't have that support at home. And she actually decided to retire a few years early because she didn't feel very supported by her company. And the culture just didn't transfer to working from home and the changes that happen. So you're right, it's a lot more than just talking about things, and actually on the day-to-day, do you feel supported? Do you feel isolated? And that's where that culture really starts to kick in when the problems start, obviously.
Yeah, definitely. And you also asked me earlier about, benefits and perks. Something that RingCentral started during the pandemic was what we called a care ring day. So we gave, and a lot of businesses did this, they gave a day for you to take some time out for yourself, because I think what people saw, that flexible working and working from home, it brought with it a different set of challenges in terms of, the lines between work and home were suddenly blurred. And people, we found, were actually working longer hours.
Yes.
And not stepping away from it. So that's something you need to have a little bit of self-discipline about, I think, as well. But in order to give some of that time back, make sure that people took time out for themselves, the business implemented once a quarter a care ring day. So in effect, 4 extra holidays. We had a wellbeing week, actually, which completely blew me away, where every day during a week in October, the business had different webinars on different topics. So one of them was managing your work-life balance. Another one was actually on managing grief, which I thought was a really interesting one and incredibly supportive to offer. And then there was totally going in a different direction. There was a dance class that was done.
Oh, wow.
So there was literally something for everybody during that wellbeing week. And RingCentral also provides access to the Headspace app as well. And I know that that's been fantastically valuable for our people. So what else is the organisation doing? Because we give a lot, and we give a lot of ourselves. So it's really nice to understand how the business would give something back.
Yeah, well, that's quite a variety as well, from dance through to managing grief, both equally as important as well. I had a really interesting conversation with a lady only recently who was talking about grief, actually, and she said people don't always understand that it's not always when you immediately lose that person. It's sometimes a couple of years later as well. You might notice a dip in the way that you work, or in your enthusiasm for your job. And working from home and then having to go in the office, it's all completely different in terms of how you deal with things and mental well-being. So yeah, that would have been a really interesting topic to have as part of your well-being week, one that we probably don't talk about enough.
I think so. And what we found is all of those things are kind of cultural items that the business is trying to foster. But there are also informal ways of spreading the culture. The culture comes from each of us individually. And so there are lots of other groups that people have set up across the business. So I set up a group for equestrians at RingCentral. So we share what we're doing with the horses. But I know that there's a photography group as well. And then there's another group that's a book club. There's another one for art. And people have done all of these themselves, but it fosters the culture informally. It's not controlled by the business in any way. It's driven by the people. So there's all sorts of ways that you can be part of and also encourage a culture, I think, yourself once you're in that organisation. So I think that's a great one for potential candidates to understand when they're looking at a business, as well as look on Glassdoor and all of those things as well to get insights into that company.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right that creating a culture, creating your own culture as well, because you're correcting, you pick a company with a culture that you think is going to be a great fit, but then if you're able to create groups like that really brings a part of you get in those meetings, you don't talk about anything work related, you talk about whatever it is within that group that you all connect on. I remember I worked at a company, we had a prayer group, and it was just nice to talk to somebody about something that wasn't work. And it was just 20 minutes to get together, because it makes such a difference in your day just to connect with people. Because we used to say, I joined that company remotely and I'd never met anyone. And we used to say, I only know Zoom you. You know, I at that point, I only knew Zoom people. You know, you just knew nothing about them. You knew them for 5 minutes on a morning call and that's it. But you're correct, if a company allows you to create a group where you can talk about hobbies and other things, that would be a great perk.
Yeah.
We've spoken a lot about employees. What are some green flags when it comes to job candidates? So, you know, what are employers looking out for?
Well, I can only answer that from my own perspective, Kelly. So let me give you my view on it. Primarily, I'm looking for a great attitude. You know, somebody who wants to contribute, somebody who wants to bring something to the team. And I put that one first over, you know, knowledge and skills, because, you know, we can give that, we can provide that as RingCentral, and, you know, any business can help somebody build their skills and give them knowledge. But if they come with that great attitude and that aptitude to learn, then they're halfway there anyway. The next thing that I would look for are the candidates that I'm fortunate enough to meet. I want somebody that shows me that they take accountability for success in that role, you know, that they don't leave their destiny in other people's hands. Yes. really taking ownership, you know, for where they want to go and what they want to be. And I find that when you know, I'm coaching and mentoring people as well. You know, lots of folks have got ambition, but they don't necessarily articulate it. And they're waiting for somebody to tell them that they're good enough to do something, or that they're okay to go and apply for that role. And, you know, when you ask them, you know, why haven't you gone for that yet? Oh, not sure whether, you know, I'm not 125 million% qualified for that role yet.
Yes, I don't quite have the experience, but
you're not doing it. But, you know, have you got 50% of it? Can you learn the rest? So, you know, somebody that's got that, you know, that want and that desire, you know, to take accountability for the path that they want to take. And then lots of people will then get behind them to support them to achieve that. That's just the way it naturally happens. I love people to come to the table with ideas, you know, and the ability to express those ideas. The absolute last thing that I want is a team of clones.
Yes.
So that is just a disaster, you know, with only one, you know, view of the world. So, you know, that's why having a diverse team from lots of, you know, people with different backgrounds, different economic backgrounds as well. So all of those things I think are really important, because then they're providing something that complements the rest of the team, you know, with a diverse experiences as well.
Yes, absolutely, and something that we very much promote at SheCanCode. You're right, if you have the same person over and over again, you're always going to get the same ideas. Nobody's ever going to come forward and realize that one of those ideas is actually a bad idea until it, you know, it's released and there's a PR nightmare. So yeah, absolutely. It just makes the team, as you said right at the start as well, fun. Your working days is so much more fun if you work with a diverse team, and you know, those that you never quite know what they're going to say or what they're going to come up with. Yeah, it's super fun, and it's really important, obviously, to pick the right company for you. But should employees take a job where they don't fit in with the company culture, will that last long term? I can imagine a graduate thinking, I just need a job, but you know, if you're a few years in, is that wise?
I thought you might ask me this, Kelly, and I've been giving it some thought, because I think it's a great question, but it's a really tricky question. For me personally, I wouldn't take a job where I wouldn't fit in with the culture. But I'm at a different place, you know, in my career, as you pointed out. You know, graduate just might need a job and need that experience, and everybody needs to put food on the table. I think you could if you could identify the fact that it was a means to an end for you, and you've got the strength of character to cope with it, because it's not easy, if you find yourself in that environment, or you embrace it and you try and influence it.
Yes, yeah. Yeah,
So
I hadn't even thought of that. You're absolutely right. You can get in and try and change, even your immediate team if you see something that you think isn't working. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that if you talk to people, you'll soon identify that you're perhaps not the only person that's feeling like that. So get your manager, get your group together, and start to make little changes. And I'll tell you about one that really just makes me laugh, even to this day. We have a weekly all hands. It's just a half an hour call, although it runs over most weeks. But we were doing the all hands in response to the ringtone survey that we do, which is to get feedback from the teams as to how they're feeling and the areas that we as a management team can improve. So we did the all hands to try and help with communication between departments. But having spoken to a lot of people that join the all hands, they primarily join it for the 10 minutes of banter that we have at the beginning.
That's interesting.
So we've now found that people are getting on earlier before the call starts, because they get to talk to different people that they may not work with on a day-to-day basis. And it's really nice to have that non-hierarchical banter. Everybody's the same. We don't do it as a webinar so that we're just pushing information. We do it as a big video call where all the participants can contribute, and periodically at the end of the call we sing happy birthday to whoever's birthdays have happened that week. Now, if you've ever tried to coordinate a couple of hundred people singing together video call, it is absolute disaster.
But so do you sound like a choir, or no, that's not RingCentral's talent there? That's not your area.
No, we don't normally ask people what their singing abilities are in their interview process, and I don't think we're putting ourselves forward for the X Factor anytime soon. But it finishes the week with absolutely everybody laughing. Because it's that bad, we're all laughing at each other together, and there are one or two people that may just do a little bit of comedy factor in there. You can spot those a mile off. But I love that. I absolutely love that part of the week.
We're running out of time, actually, so I wanted to ask you one last question, if that's okay.
Of course.
Do you have any advice for those who are questioning their fit in a company? How long should you give yourself at a new job if you're thinking it's not quite right for you?
Yeah, so I think I was given some advice years ago by my dad, and he said you should give any new role 6 months as a minimum, because you can't judge it before then. And of course you're going to feel uncomfortable. When you first join a business, there's so much to learn, so you've got to give yourself a chance to get through those natural stages. I do think it's incumbent on the organisation to onboard people really well, but not everybody's got those amazing sort of processes and supporting teams in place like we have. So I would definitely recommend giving it 6 months and making sure that you've got a two-way feedback interaction loop with your manager to truly understand and to be able to speak openly about what makes success for the role. What does the organisation need, and what do you need as an individual to feel successful and to feel like you're progressing and that you're empowered. And I think if you can get that feedback loop going, then you'll get to a more comfortable position quicker. But don't stay there forever if it's not the right fit. Take what you need from it. Be clear about that in terms of your own sort of plan and your career goals. And as I said earlier, be accountable for that. So take control of your own destiny. So don't stay somewhere forever where you're unhappy. because that would be a truly miserable existence.
Yes, so I was just going to say, I think people worry, don't they, what it will look like on their CV if they're not somewhere, for a few good years, and if they just decide after 6 months this isn't for me. But I think you're absolutely right. If mentally you're very unhappy with the way that something is going, and you've already checked out in your mind anyway, and it's only a matter of time where it starts to reflect in your work and your career as well. Why would you stick around a place where you're really not happy at? As we mentioned at the start, it's where you spend most of your day and your time. We are out of time.
Thank you for the opportunity to chat to you. It's been really enjoyable, and I hope your listeners find some of it helpful.
Yes, thank you. Well, thank you so much to Louise for taking the time to share your experience with us today. Thank you so much for coming along. And to everybody listening, thank you as always for joining, and we hope to see you again next time.